This was probably the worst that my skin ever was in my whole life. We would get into these texting arguments while I'm also working on my film in the lab. Then all of a sudden, I started just crying, breaking down. Hello bitches, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my second year at CalArts. This is a part 2 from last week's video, which went over my first year at CalArts and why it didn't go so well. It was a year of adjustment, insecurities, fear, and anxiety, and just learning to overcome all of that. Whereas my second year of CalArts, the theme of it was kind of more about workaholism, work-life balance, and just learning how to take care of myself, because there was really none of that when the second year of CalArts first started. And I feel like this is a topic that a lot of not just art students, but students in general can relate to, because you're in this in-between phase of like learning to figure out yourself and get your life together. And you might be under this illusion that working harder equals success or something like that, when that's really not the case, especially if you are really losing a part of yourself or just not really taking care of yourself. There are a lot of sacrifices that happen when you work too hard to the point that, you know, you have no balance in other areas of your life. And I feel like that was the biggest lesson I learned in my second year. So if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, check it out in the links below. Otherwise, in this video, it will be a continuation from part 1. So where we last left off in my previous video was I was willing to finally make a change in myself and my life, because I was tired of feeling insecure, anxious, fearful, and just not willing to get out of my comfort zone at all. And I wanted a fresh new start for myself in my second year of CalArts. I was like, Michelle, you're gonna finally get out of your comfort zone, make friends, and show people your art, and who cares what they think if they don't like it whatsoever. You're going to be a bad bitch your second year. And I was so determined to make that happen. However, literally during the end of my first year of CalArts, like the summer of the end of my first year, I found out that my grandpa passed away, and it was very hard to take in because it was kind of really unexpected, but at the same time we knew my grandpa's health was declining, but the reason for his death kind of was unexpected. So very last minute, we were rushed to the hospital. I was luckily enough to be back in New York during this time, and I was there sitting there as my grandpa just passed away. So I was really grateful to be there with my grandpa for his final moments, but it was still very sad for all of us, of course, because he was the last grandparent that we had. He was the one who picked me up from school all the time, and my grandparents were literally like my second pair of parents. So the day that I flew back for my second year of CalArts was the day right after like my grandpa's funeral. It was that sudden, and all of a sudden I had to now go back to California to start my second year. And it was just very strange to just have to have that complete mindset shift from being like, oh, I feel really sad, I want to spend more time with my family, because being away from home for so long gets you in that existential mindset of just being like, oh my gosh, I only have so many times left that I can see some of my family members. It's just so weird to spend so much time away from the family that you've spent pretty much all your life with. So that was something that was kind of hard to embrace, especially like during my first year, but it's something that never went away. Even to this day, I get that feeling of missing my family. So the homesickness was really real when I went back to my second year, and it was hard to really get myself to be that person that I promised I would be, aka that bad bitch second year self, where I was like, I'm gonna work hard, I'm going to have more confidence, I'm gonna do all these things that I wanted to do. All of a sudden that was clashing with this emotional weight that I was dealing with after what just happened. So when I got back, I tried to put those emotional feelings away, because I was just like, you know what, my grandparents would have wanted me to work hard. That's what they came to America for us to do, is to go live our lives and be successful. So I wanted to make sure that I followed through with that, and of course I want that for myself too, to be better as a student, person, and artist. So I went in and put all my feelings away. So I started my second year pretty good. I had a great roommate, and I started making new friends pretty easily compared to my first year at CalArts, because once there were second year students entering, I felt like it was easier to make friends with people that did not really feel as familiar with the school, but you had some things that you could offer to them. And at the same time, I started becoming friends with my friend Nor even more. And I also started to put more effort in mingling with my own classmates. So I felt like the friendship area was already starting to improve. So for our first week of our second year at CalArts, we had to do a first week film. This is something that you kind of have to do every time you return back to school during our time at CalArts. I honestly don't know if they do that anymore, so this might have just been during my time there. Was we had to make a first week film, and you could do whatever you wanted just within 1 week. So I just wanted to do like animations to a song that I liked, and while I was doing that, I really was using this time to practice being that version of myself where I'm like, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna stay in the labs. No more running back to your dorm room, Missy. You are staying in the labs and just working, and if anyone wants to talk to you, you talk to them. So I was doing that and it went well. I finished my first week film and it got like a good reception from my teachers and classmates. They thought it was cool, and I proceeded to go on with the rest of my second year. Things were going so good so far. So then also during my second year, we had to also start film workshop classes, which was something that I don't really think we properly had in our first year. Your story class in your first year is kind of more like the film workshop class, but starting your second year, you have these official film workshop classes where the full intent of these classes are to work on your student films and provide feedback for everyone and ways to make them better. So I was really pumped and ready because I felt like I was ready to do something challenging and have it be a full collaborative experience, unlike my first year. So I made a story about the experience of what it feels like being catcalled in the city, but how I also wished that there could be change that happens in it. So if you haven't seen my second year film, Unstoppable, that was my second year film, and I still kind of to this day am pretty proud of that film in terms of the concept and the idea and actually the symbolism that I chose to utilize in it. Like, I still really like that film. Of course, going back and looking at it, I know there are some technical changes that I could make to it or improve on the art physically speaking, but story-wise and symbolism-wise and just message-wise, I really enjoyed that film. Working on this film really made me feel pumped. I was ambitious. I was doing like visual development, thumbnails, and all of this brainstorming work and welcoming all the feedback that anyone would provide me. Like anytime my film workshop teacher would give me advice, I would just write it down and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do anything that you think will make this film better. I wanted to be so open to feedback and criticism because I felt like that made the experience more collaborative, and I know that more brains instead of just mine can make this better. So when I first started working on this film, things were like pretty easy. I would just do things on a regular work schedule basis. However, I noticed that as time went on, I started to stay in the labs later. First, I would stay in the labs till 6 p.m. Then all of a sudden it would be 9 p.m. and then 1 a.m. and then all of a sudden it's fucking 5 a.m. I don't know what happened, but I'm pretty sure that I lacked some sense of time management throughout this year, and I felt like I was also getting distracted by the fact that I was trying to balance other parts of my life, like making friends with my classmates and trying to just, you know, keep a healthy diet and work out and just living my life at the same time while working. So I tried to squeeze all of these things into each other every day, but I didn't realize that my lack of time management was actually making me start to lose my work-life balance. So while I was working on my second year film, it was mainly up to the point where I started animation, the 2D animation portion of my film, where I noticed I was starting to stay in the labs later and later and later. And I do admit that a part of me stayed in the labs later because I definitely was distracted easily by the fact that, you know, I have friends now and I want to spend time with them and hang out with them. But I also had this film that I really had to do, and it was a really ambitious idea for something that was only like 4 or 5 minutes long. And I think like for your second year film, it actually had to be less time than that, but you can also make a longer film if you want to, if you are okay with not being in the producer's show, in which I was okay with, just because I was like, you know what, I feel like this message is important. It might need more time than what was the limit for a second year film, so whatever. I just want to make a good film. Who cares what show it's in or whatever. So as I was staying in the labs later and later, of course I would also wake up later and later, and with so much time in the day, I didn't even like take care of myself health-wise anymore. I started to just eat whatever was the easiest thing to grab in the cafeteria. Like if there was a burrito or just like some breakfast sandwich just ready and sitting there in a way that I don't have to wait for like the chef or anyone to make it, I would just grab that instead. Anything that I could just grab, I just took that as my meal of the day. So every day I ate something super unhealthy for breakfast, and I didn't even spend the time to like work out or do any physical exercise to compensate for that, and it just was not balanced at all. And I noticed that over time, my skin was also starting to break out a lot. I was breaking out in a lot of cystic acne on my cheeks and jaw. And this was probably the worst that my skin ever was in my whole life. But I also did not give two shits, because I was just like,
bitch, I have a film to work on. I got things to do. I don't got time to care about my fucking skin or my diet or health. Who cares? Makeup exists. I can cover that shit up.
So I continued to just work on my shit and really disregard my health and everything. And I don't know what was happening to me in this stage in life, but I feel like this was also the year that I was getting into the most fights with my friends. We would get into these texting arguments while I'm also working on my film in the labs, while also trying to entertain my other friends that were sitting next to me in the labs. There were just so many things going on. And then one day I literally just woke up in my bed and I just sat there and I ate Oreos for breakfast, and I had like vitamin gummies for breakfast too, because that was the only other thing I had, because I just could not bring myself to go out or do anything. And I was just like,
what the fuck is wrong with me? I said I was gonna have a good year this year. I said I was going to make this year better than my first year. And yeah, I do feel like I am a little bit better than my first year. I have friends now, I'm working harder, I'm showing my work to people now.
Why don't I feel happy? I just reflected on myself, and finally, I decided to go to my mentor at school. So we're all assigned these mentors in school that kind of just help you throughout your whole, I guess, journey at CalArts, not just as an art student, but as a person. You can talk to them almost like a therapist and talk about what you're struggling with. And they can also help you with your student film as well. So it's really cool, because you have someone who like worked on your favorite films in the past as your childhood, also now helping you with your life problems. So that's one thing I thought was pretty cool. But when I went to go talk to my mentor, at first we were just talking about my student film and of course ways to make it better. Then he started asking me, how is my time going at CalArts just as a student, and like, how am I feeling and all of that. Then all of a sudden, I started just crying, breaking down in the office. I went from like talking about my student film and just animating to all of a sudden just in tears with my hands on my face, covering my eyes, and just like in fetal position. And he was probably just like,
what the fuck just happened?
And of course it wasn't his fault at all, but I started just bawling over really random things that just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was just like, my grandpa passed away and I wanted to work really hard for my family and friends. Now I just feel like I can't get out of this cycle of working, because working makes me feel better because I don't have to think about missing my family, but working harder is also making me feel disgusting about myself. I feel like the worst version of myself ever, even though I'm supposed to feel like the best version of myself and all of this shit. Like honestly, I was a hot mess. So of course he was giving me some consolation and advice and telling me like to just manage my time a little bit better. So finally, I think I had a moment after that therapy session of letting my emotions out. I concluded that I have been overworking because I had a lot of emotions that I was also repressing, and working harder for some reason made it easier for me to feel distracted from these emotions that I was repressing within myself. I missed my family, I missed my home, I missed my life, I missed living life, but I also wanted to really get rid of my past self, the version of me who was afraid of everything, the past version of me that was insecure and had no friends. I wanted to just ignore that person and hide it all in work. So I felt like, okay, I said I needed to change last year for this year. Well, guess what? I need to change again. By the end of my second year, I started my first internship at Cartoon Network, which was a great experience. I will honestly just put the internship stories in another type of video some other day. But during my time at Cartoon Network, I felt like I had a time to finally just not think about films and really think about other things that I wanted to do. So I started to cook for myself during my time at Cartoon Network. And I could have done this at CalArts as well. However, when you're in the dorms, you have to share the kitchen with everybody else on your floor. And it was just not something I really wanted to deal with. And knowing who I was in my second year, I would not have found the time for myself to cook. But I really used that time during my internship at Cartoon Network to just kind of start practicing living my life again and just practice being a normal human being. I will honestly say that my habits of not making friends or getting out there and putting myself out there kind of came back during my internship, because this was my first time working an animation related job, and those fears of my first year self kind of came back and haunted me again. And throughout my internship at Cartoon Network, I will honestly say I went there to do my work, and when the day was over, I came back. I barely really interacted with any of the other interns there, and if I did, it was just really my first and last day there. And I really was avoidant of everyone just because I felt like I was going through part 2 of my existential crisis, and a part of me again just felt intimidated to be in the industry finally, and it kind of overwhelmed me. So a lot of my Cartoon Network internship was also spent in the apartment that I was renting out for that summer to stay there. And every time I went back to my apartment, I would just spend that time working on the pitch Bible that we all had to pitch at the end of our internship. I wouldn't say anything was the fault of my internship at all, but I just wanted to be honest and say that even though you say you're going to change a part of yourself, some of your old habits will still find a way to sneak up back on you one way or another and still affect you. It's not like just because you say you want to change and start making these changes that it will suddenly just be perfect in a black and white manner. Like, nothing is that black and white. There's always going to be gray areas of just imperfection still happening while you are in this journey of change. And that part of me from my first year still kind of snuck back up on me during my second year at CalArts. Like, yes, I was still so much better than how I was my first year. I was making friends, I was open to feedback and criticism and just sharing my work with people and just making friends and blah, blah, blah. But there were still instances of my first year self where I wanted to be antisocial and alone that still snuck back up on me. Oh my God. During the summer after my second year at CalArts and when my internship at Cartoon Network was over, I decided that, hey, I think my third year needs to be a year of good balance. Like, I want to be able to live my life and take care of myself, but also be able to work on my film smarter and work on my own stuff smarter and not just hard. So what I did was during the summer of my second year, I wanted to just get a little bit ahead of the game and just plan for my third year film ahead of time. So that would save me a lot of brain work for when my third year started and I could come in with an idea ready to go. So while I was on vacation, this was actually when I was in Europe, and I made a little sketchbook. That is exactly where I started to plan my third year film. I wanted to just make this idea while I was still, you know, in a place where I was kind of living my life and feeling free. So hopefully that generated more creative juices, and so that by the time I started my third year, it was mainly about execution. So during my second year summer, I just drew in my sketchbook, brainstormed some ideas. And when I started my third year at CalArts, I just let my teacher know this is the idea I want to do, and I just want to be able to have the tools in this school and the resources to make this idea happen. So that is what I did, and I will say that I feel like I started my third year of CalArts a little bit more balanced in the work-life area, just because I got most of the brain work portion out of the way by the time the year started. So one of the things I did for myself when this year started too was I wanted to get back onto working out, because surprisingly, prior to my second year of CalArts, I was actually already working out regularly, and it was a part of my life until my second year. And I really wanted to bring that back because I was just like, I know I can do this. It's just about finding a way to gradually bring this part of my life back to who I am. So I started with little small increments. Like every day I would just do like a 20 to 30 minute jog on the treadmill. And to some people that might already seem like a lot, but it wasn't that much to me because I could just put on a show, put on an anime, put on something and watch. And I would just run for like 20, 30 minutes every day. And eventually that would turn into like 45 minutes. Eventually that would turn into like 1 hour. And I would slowly start implementing new workout routines back into my schedule. I was starting to watch what I was eating as well. Like I didn't want to just grab a burrito or a breakfast sandwich just because I saw it during my third year. And I just started to prioritize like fruits, eggs, and like more fresh produce that whenever my school provided it, I would just try to take it while it was there. And I also gave myself a strict schedule that's not really that strict. It was just honestly like, by 6 p.m. you have to be done and out of the labs. You can't touch your film anymore. If you didn't get to finish what you did, well, that sucks. Just reorganize your schedule in a way that it will still work out. So I also invested in a little bullet journal. I got a little notebook and I turned it into a little bullet journal where I wrote down my tasks every day, and I made sure it was just a little bit. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made during my second year's time management was I didn't really allocate what task I was doing every day. It was kind of more of me just going into the labs every day and just hoping that whatever I worked on made some sort of progress, and if it's progress, that's cool. But then again, I will give my second year self some credit and say that I was kind of prioritizing the idea of just getting myself in the labs to begin with. I just wanted to familiarize myself and be more confident with drawing around other students and being in that environment and just letting myself sit in there to work. And honestly, that's just what it took for me to get to the next point, which was, okay, now that you are comfortable with going into the labs, why don't you start scheduling and organizing the amount of time you'll actually stay in the labs? So I was just like, you know what? After my experience at Cartoon Network, I get an idea of what a workday is like in an animator or someone in animation. Usually it's like 10 to 7 or 9 to 6. I tend to be more of an early bird, so I was like, I'll go to the labs at 9, and by 6, that's it. You can't stay in there no more. Soon after that, I did not realize I was going to be entering another really random life event, and that was going to be actually having to say goodbye to one of my closest friends ever, and simultaneously at the same time meeting my boyfriend, which is a very strange story and kind of a dramatic one, but I will save that for the next video because I just feel like that is a whole story in itself, and I might as well just talk about the second half of my third year and my fourth year together to kind of give this a final close as like the third part of the series. So yeah, I am sorry to leave you all on this cliffhanger, but a content creator's gotta do what she's gotta do to keep viewers watching. I just want to let you all know that if you feel like you are not working enough in school, that doesn't mean you should work until you can't breathe and live your life and take care of yourself. There's always a way to have both exist in your life, and sometimes it might just be about managing your time and sticking to the times that you promise you say that you will work, because there are so many people who will just say, I will just work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. but like in between they're just distracted and going online and not really doing the things they're supposed to do. So you really have to promise yourself that between the hours that you will be working, you try your best to stay as focused as possible possible, and that's not always a guarantee because we are human, we are bound to get distracted. But as long as you did your best and stay focused as much as possible, then you did the best that you can do. And if that time was still not enough for you to finish your project, maybe your project was honestly just a little bit too ambitious for the time span that you allowed yourself to work on it. I don't know. That's just one of the cases for why some things just don't get done, or why time management and self-care kind of gets a little bit chaotic sometimes. There are many reasons as to why these things happen, but those were just personally why they happened to me. So overall, I would say that my second year was very productive in actually collaboration and making friends finally with the people in my school. I felt like that was the best year for me personally in terms of forming relationships and trusting people, and I felt like this was the year that I really took my time at CalArts seriously. However, I do think I went a little bit too far if I was actually sacrificing my health to the point that I was not eating healthy and it was affecting my body and hormones. But I think now that you kind of got some experience in that circle, maybe for next year, your third year, it's time to bring back some of your personal life into your life so that you know how to balance both extremes. So stay tuned for the next video where I will discuss the remainder of my third year at CalArts as well as my fourth year, especially for any of you who might be graduating this year or getting onto the whole job hunt series. This is gonna be kind of the moment in my college career where I kind of got existential with finding a job and figuring out what I actually want to do within animation. So stay tuned for next week's video if you want to see that. So thank you again for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.